Garden number 10 is the Morgan Garden. Sherri Morgan moved to this Ashland property here about a year and a half ago and inherited a few plants, some of which she has retained. There's a beautiful flowering cherry and a couple of dogwoods. Because of her interest in native plants to support our native insect population and pollinators in general, she began to transform the garden. To deter the local deer, Sherri had to build a fence around the east and north side of the garden and planted a variety of native shrubs and perennials in that area. On the south side, which is sunny and open to deer, her plant choices were governed by those concerns. So the front has many more flowers that need sun and includes plants like goldenrod and aster that will bloom in the fall.
Welcome to my garden. My name is Sherri. I live in Ashland, and I have lived here for about 15 years, but just a year and a half ago I moved to a new house down nearer to the freeway in Ashland, and I inherited a garden that I think was owned by somebody who wasn't much of a gardener, so I wanted to start to add plants to it. I'm a big proponent of native plants. And the reason why I am is I started off as a landscape design school at Merritt College in Oakland. I took a native plant class. That was the first time I knew about native plants. And then I have gone on a garden tour in the East Bay area in California called the Bringing Back the Natives Garden Tour. And I want to give a shout out to that tour. It's on again this year. It's a virtual tour. And Kathy Kramer organized that tour. So she was a great inspiration to me and has been very helpful. So I really appreciate Kathy. I've also want to have people know about Douglas Tallamy. Douglas Tallamy is a professor of entomology, and he's written 2 books. This is Bringing Nature Home, and the subtitle here is How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. That's really what I'm interested in. I want to plant for the insects, which is what Douglas Tallamy is interested in, native insects that co-evolved with the native plants. And the birds use the caterpillars from those native insects to feed their babies. Some of these plants are going to bloom later in the year. This is Gaillardia, one of my favorite plants. It has a little blossom that looks like the state of Arizona's state flag. It's orange and yellow, daisy-like blossom. This wonderful little plant is called Oregon Sunshine. This is a Southern Oregon native, and it grows around here on the hills. Has pretty little daisy flowers, and you can see it's going to have hundreds of daisy flowers pretty soon. These are our native yarrows. I've got 3 of them here, and they will spread out and fill this whole area in. They're white, unlike a lot of the yarrows that you see in the garden stores right now. This one's getting ready to bloom. And this is seaside daisy. This variety of seaside daisy, it's called a Rigeron. Wayne Roderick, can take a little more heat than the ones that grow over closer to the coast, but also daisy-like flowers with purplish blooms, getting ready to bloom right now. This is one of my favorite plants. This is Ceanothus, sometimes called California lilac. It's a real attractant for bees, and it blooms in these beautiful blue blossoms clustered at the ends of, or the tops of their foliage. This garden is open to deer, so some of the Ceanothus will be eaten by deer, but this one has these wonderful little spiky small leaves, and the deer don't like to eat it. I'll tell you a story about this little plant. This is a buckwheat, and buckwheat grows up on Mount Ashland, and this plant attracts a butterfly that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Many years ago, over 30 or maybe 40 years ago, Vladimir Nabokov, who wrote Lolita, who was a butterfly expert, came to Ashland and was here because of this plant. He wanted to study the butterflies that came to this plant. So that's a literary reference for that plant. There are 2 shrubs here that are natives and that are deer tolerant. This one is California myrtle, Myrica californica. Makes a nice hedge shrub. It will grow quite large and fill in this whole space. And this one, which the deer are not supposed to eat, but they don't read the books and they've been nibbling on it. This is a relative of our madrone. It's called Arbutus unido, and this is a compact form, so it's going to get to be big. Remember, these plants are all only a year old. Hopefully by the time it's bigger I won't notice that the deer have been eating it. Welcome to my weed patch. This is a root of milkweed, and there's some other milkweed in here that I can't find right now. And these little things are all seedlings of elegant tarweed, Mattia elegans, that I just had 3 of those last year, and they've sprouted up everywhere. So those are interesting plants that were used by the Native Americans who lived in this area. They have wonderful seeds that they harvested and made into a paste that they used in cooking. So this is one of my favorite shrubs. It is the red flowering currant, Ribes sanguineum. These plants are adaptable to shade and sun. They don't like a lot of water. I've killed at least one of them by watering it too much. Not in this garden, but in another garden. So I have another currant over here. That is the Sierra currant. These 2 little shrubs are red twig dogwoods. These are dwarf versions of red twig dogwoods. These would normally be found down along stream beds, so they do take a little bit more water, and they're close to this dogwood, this other dogwood here, which is not native. It's the East Coast version of the dogwoods. I inherited this one, so it will need a little bit of extra water in the summer. I have match precipitation rotator sprays that water in this area, that put down water at a very slow pace, like rain, so I can kind of judge how much water these plants need. Over here we have a couple of really nice ground cover plants for the shade. These are wild ginger. Wild ginger has a really weird looking flower that you find underneath the leaves. I haven't found any yet, but these are wonderful ground cover plants for shady areas. This shrub is a mock orange. It's not blooming yet, but it will have little white orange scented flowers like orange blossoms. It's a historical plant because the Latin name for this is Philadelphus lewisii. It was discovered on the Lewis and Clark expedition and brought back east, where they have another Philadelphus called Virginialis, but this is our native Philadelphus. These are tidy tips. They're new plants for me. They are annuals, and I'm hoping they will seed around, and pretty soon I'll have a whole little annual wildflower garden back here. This is a serviceberry. Some people call this sarvisberry. These are native all along the northern tier and up into Canada, so a widespread plant. It will get to be a tall plant. It'll be 8-10 feet tall, and will have little berries on it. And next to it is the coffee berry. You can't see the flowers on this. They're little yellow-green flowers. They're right down tucked in between the leaves, but later on they'll become berries, and like coffee berries, they start out red and they end up black, and the birds love them. So I'm looking forward to seeing those in the late summer, fall. I don't want you to miss this. This is shooting star. This is dodecatheon. Isn't that fun to say? Shooting star, and I actually got these at Shooting Star Nursery. They completely disappear in the late summer, fall, winter, and they came out again. I forgot they were there, and they popped right up next to my little violas there, so I'm thrilled to have those. This is one of my favorite plants. This is our Western columbine. You can see it's yellow and orange, unlike most of the other columbines, which tend to be in the pastel shades. These grow nicely in the shade. So they're in here with their friends, the Brunnera and some other plants that grow in the shade, and I'm hoping they'll seed around too. And this is a lovely little shade-loving plant. It's our Western bleeding heart, Dicentra formosa. And out at the extension, these things have spread around to like 8 or 10 feet wide as a little ground cover. So I'm looking forward to them doing that here as well. This is our western cousin of blueberries. This one is a huckleberry, and you can find these up along the Rogue River. If you take the Rogue jet boats to Agnes, they have huckleberry jam that they sell there and syrup for their ice cream sundaes. So I think this is a lovely little plant. It has bright or reddish new leaves and shiny green leaves. It's evergreen. This plant is new to me. It's called Jacob's Ladder. That's its common name. Polemonium is the generic name, or the genus name rather. Here we have a western azalea. It's Rhododendron occidentale, and it will have beautiful little sort of coral pink flowers on it a little later in the year, or maybe when it's old enough. This is a very young plant. This is a vine maple, and these are lovely little plants for part shade. They're understory trees. They'll get quite a bit taller than this. They're called vines, but they don't really vine, and they have beautiful fall color, so I'm looking forward to that. This is the other ribes, the other currant that I promised you, and this one is a golden currant. It has edible golden currants on it if you get to them before the birds do. And it sort of struggled last year, but this year it looks like it's coming on strong. So I would like to plant a bunch more of those along there and be able to eat the currants. And finally, this is the native honeysuckle. It hasn't bloomed yet, but I imagine, like other honeysuckles, that the hummingbirds will come to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it grow on the fence here. So that's my native honeysuckle. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour of my garden. I'm sure you've noticed that I have some plants here that aren't natives, and I love this flowering cherry and my dogwood. I would have chosen a native dogwood if I'd had the choice, but you can certainly integrate native plants with plants that you already have in your garden. It's a good way to go, especially if you have lawn. Take some of that lawn out and put some native plants in.